Story number 1. When I was around 8 or 9, I stayed at my grandparents' house a lot. The house used to be small with only a living room, kitchen, and 2 bedrooms and a bath. The house used to be small with only the main living room, kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and a bathroom, which all sounds pretty normal. Well, they decided they wanted to build off on it, so an upstairs, a second living room, and a dining room were built. It was a small house, yes, but it connected very well. So anyway, you could be sitting in the new living room and look up through the dining room and the kitchen to see the old main living room, which was now mostly used for storage. If I was ever there alone, whether it was day or night, it would be a complete nope to go past the kitchen to the old part of the house. My grandparents let me stay there during the days of summer since my parents worked. One day, I was sitting on the couch in the new living room watching Cartoon Network. Then I got that off feeling you get sometimes that makes the movement in the air just start to halt. I remember everything zoning out and starting to look for something because I thought I needed to find the reason for this. I remember returning from my search of the new living room. For some reason, I cock my head to the left and look into the kitchen. I hear a big crash, and then a loud alarm goes off. After shitting myself, I get up and realize it's coming from the kitchen. So I walk through the dining room, and once I reach the kitchen, I see that the clock on the wall had fallen and hit some kitchen utilities. I had to clean it up and then hang the clock back on the wall, which hangs from a hook, and it was still there. This means the clock would have been lifted, which is so weird. Another more menacing story in this house occurred. This time my grandparents were home and I was staying the night. They were upstairs hanging out and I was hungry, so I went into the kitchen to get some food. As I was heading through the dining room, I get that feeling that something isn't right, but I keep walking. In this house, there's a long hallway connected to the kitchen, which leads down to 2 bedrooms and the old living room. There's also another door that leads straight into the old living room. Now, this house is old and dark at night. The hallway is torture because the light switch is literally at the other end of the hallway. Anyway, I walk through the kitchen right to the door that leads directly into the old living room. I look to my left, searching for whatever my senses are picking up on. To my left is the hallway I mentioned, and the kitchen light is illuminating the hallway to a grayish color. It was then that I saw a figure crawl into the second door that led into the hallway. It scares me, so I quickly turn my head straight, which causes my gaze to go into the old living room, and I see black, which, yeah, I know it's night, but again, there's still the kitchen light making a dark gray color to the room for sight. I saw pure black. My eyes adjust and I see it's a figure and it's much taller than me. During this time, I'm young and I just remember feeling calm because I didn't understand what this was or why it was here. I look up to find a faceless void. The thing that had crawled on the floor in the hallway scared me more than this one. So I just turn right, grab my snack, and calmly walk away. I didn't feel safe or in danger. I just felt confused. My great-grandmother used to live in that house, but died when I was 2. She always had an oxygen tank, which, if she's the reason why these things happen, maybe that's why the air always feels like it stops. I don't know, but we also had 2 dogs that died in that house. Story number 2. To give a bit of context, my grandparents used to live in this big old house in the south of England from the 1970s till the 90s when they had passed. The house was built in the 1700s. When my grandparents died, the ownership of the house was jointly given to my dad and his sister. They renovated it and used it as a wedding function type place. Sometimes guests would hold their wedding there and then leave the same night. Other times, the wedding party would stay in the renovated bedrooms on the first floor and then leave the next day. It's got about 10 bedrooms on the first floor, but a further 20 or so on the second floor, back from when all the servants working in the house in the old days would have lived up there. The second floor hasn't been touched in all the time it's been in our family. I went up there exploring one time when I came to visit my grandparents when I was little. Just room upon empty room, no wallpaper, and bare floorboards. So on to the first thing that happened in the house. Once the house had been renovated and was being used for weddings, My dad gave a job to my uncle to be a handyman of sorts for the house, doing repairs as and when they were needed, and one of his jobs was to go down to the house and unlock the main door first thing in the morning whenever there was going to be a wedding on. And at the times there would be no one staying the night. He would go down there around midnight and wait around for when the wedding was over so that he could check everyone had left and lock up. One night, he was waiting outside for the last guests to leave, and once they had, he did a quick tour of the house, checking all of the rooms just in case of stragglers. He then stacked up all the chairs from where the wedding's dinner had been held, turned off all the lights, and left and locked up. As he was walking to his car, he heard an almighty crash from the inside of the house. He assumed that the stacked chairs had fallen over, so he turned around and ran back. As he got to the front door, he could hear a piano that was in one of the ground room floors being played in a way that wasn't any recognizable tune, more like someone randomly hitting keys. He panicked and assumed that he'd locked someone in. Once he was back in, he turned all the lights back on, and the chairs were where he had left them, stacked up, and there was no one in the house. Despite him doing repeated walkthroughs, shouting at the top of his lungs for whoever was still in there to come out, after half an hour, he finally gave up and left. He laughs about it if you mention it now. He does say that at the time he was terrified as there was nothing that could have accounted for the crashing noise or for how the piano was being played on its own. After a couple of years, the wedding business dried up and the house stood empty. We were in the middle of moving house, and after the sale of our old house was agreed and the date to move out was set, the purchase of our new house fell through, so we were in a position of still needing to get out of our old house but had nowhere to go. Our dad's solution was for us to go and live in my grandparents' old house until we could find a new house. We were there from July 2001 till February 2002. The way the house was arranged, the front door is at one end of the house and the stairs are at the other end. A long corridor runs from the front door to the stairs, with all the main function rooms coming off the main corridor. At the end of the stairs on the first floor, you had 4 bedrooms all arranged around the landing, and then a long hallway running down the length of the house with 3 bedrooms on either side of it. My parents and my 2 brothers all picked rooms that were accessed from the first floor landing. Me and my late teen wisdom picked the bedroom right at the end of the hallway on the other side of the house, on the left-hand side, so I was quite away from everyone else each night. When you climb the stairs and reach the landing on the first floor, the stairs loop around again to the left and go up to the second floor, but the staircase narrows. From the ground floor to the first floor, the stairs are really wide, so at least 5 people could stand shoulder to shoulder on the stairs and still have room. But the stairs from the first floor to the second floor are really narrow, just over 1 person's width, with a door at the top which was always kept closed and locked. I would always stay up pretty late browsing the net downstairs. Back in those days, we only had 1 PC down in the study room and we all had to share. As the oldest, I would be the last in the chain for use. My youngest brother would use it first in the early evening for an hour or 2. Then my middle brother until his bedtime, and then me last, hence me always being late to bed. One night, it must have been 1:30 or thereabouts, I turned off the PC and went up to bed. At that hour, all the other lights in the house would be off and I would make my way upstairs in the dark. The narrow stairway from the first floor landing up to the second floor was always dark as hell, just a black void, and I always avoided looking up there. So this night I climbed the stairs and the house is silent. Everyone else is asleep. Once I'm on the landing on the first floor, I hear footsteps above me coming from the second floor, keeping pace with mine as I make my way down towards my room. I stop, shitting myself at the sound coming from above me, but they carry on walking down the corridor in the direction towards the other end of the house. When they get to a position roughly where the door to my room is, I hear an almighty bang from a door being slammed shut. I am not ashamed to say that I sprinted down that hallway, jumped into my bed, and put my CD Walkman on. I hid under the covers. Just thinking about it now is giving me goosebumps again. I must have lay there for at least an hour. The CD I had on came to an end and I lay there listening for any noise. I couldn't hear anything at all and eventually drifted off. The next day, I asked my parents and brothers if they had heard anything during the night, but none of them did. It was only then that I told them what had happened. My dad and I then went up to the second floor and couldn't find any signs of disturbance. All the doors, apart from the one at the top of the stairs, which was always kept shut and locked, were fully open. Another time, my mom was alone in the house. There's a small storeroom opposite of my bedroom that my mom would keep all my spare bed sheets and towels in. One day she was in there putting bits away and she felt a hand grip her shoulder lightly and a female voice say, "Hello." She turned, but there was no one there. She ran out and didn't use that room anymore. My dad had to go in there and get all the sheets and towels out and then lock the door, and my mom used a different room for storage from then on. Nothing else happened while we were there, but I hated that house. Luckily, we were not there for very long. A few years after we moved out, my aunt, her husband, and their 2 girls moved in. They all still lived there. The girls were about 4 when they moved in, and they had used the same bedrooms as my brothers had when we lived there. After about a year of being there, my dad came home one day and told us about how my aunt called him and told him that one of the girls kept waking up in the night with bad dreams, and then would come get into bed with my aunt and uncle. This carried on for about 2 weeks until one night she woke up screaming. My aunt came running to her room and tried to settle her. After a while, her screams eased to just sobbing, and my aunt asked her what she had a bad dream about. My cousin said that there was an old lady that kept waking her up, whispering to her and scaring her. When my aunt asked her what old lady she was talking about, my cousin pointed to the corner of the room behind my aunt and said, "That one over there." My aunt turned to look, and there was no one there, but was sufficiently creeped out. She moved my cousin to another room the next day, and since there has been no other activity that I am aware of. Hey guys, it's Crimson Siren. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Also follow me on Twitter and Instagram for any updates on future videos. All of the artwork was created by Ari, so huge shout out to him, and check out his Tumblr in the description below. Again, thank you guys, and I hope you have a spooky night.